or good afternoon, or good morning, whenever you're watching this. We're coming to you live from the Mid-Maryland Folk Life Center at Common Ground on the Hill on the campus of McDaniel College. And we are finishing up Traditions Week 1. We have 3 Traditions Weeks here on the campus. First 2 are virtual, so they reach you wherever you are. And the 3rd week, which will start on July 10th, will be in person on the campus of McDaniel College, ending in a festival on the 16th. But here we are virtually, and we're awfully glad you're with us. And what we do in our evening concerts is feature people who've been teaching with us in Traditions Weeks. I should add that it's not too late to sign up for classes in Traditions Week 2, which starts this coming Monday, which is actually the 4th of July, and also Week 3, which starts on July 10th. Not too late to sign up. Check it out, commongroundonthehill.org. Our first presenter is Randy Mayer from Sahuarita, Arizona. And he is the pastor at the Church of the Good Shepherd there. And in that church are all these amazing people who go out into the desert and help save people who are in trouble in the desert as they try to cross to a new life. And Randy's work is never done. And he has helped us form Common Ground on the Border, which takes place in January. You should consider coming out and seeing what the desert's like in the winter. It's beautiful. And also see the amazing work that the Green Valley Samaritans do. And you, of course, you can find that Googling Common Ground on the Border. Randy, as I say, is a pastor, and he's also a folk musician. He has a great love of the music, runs a coffee house there in Sahuarita at the Church of the Good Shepherd. And it's been a wonderful partnership. And Randy taught with us this week, and he'll be in person. He'll be on campus with us in week 3, teaching Soul Witness Quest for Border Justice. And he'll be doing the keynote, Soul Witness, keynote on Monday night, the 11th of July. So and it's his birthday today. So wish him a happy birthday. And here we go with Randy Mayer, all the way from Arizona.
All right, it is really good to see. I wish I could see everybody. I wish I could be there in person. I will be there in a couple of weeks. We're having a lot of rain out there in our desert right now. We're in the middle of the monsoon season. So I thought I'd, in honor of the water, I'm going to sing a little song from Leadbelly, and it's a song that you probably remember. Pete Seeger used to sing it. Lots of people have sung it. Bring a little water, Sylvie. Bring a little water, Sylvie. Bring a little water now. Bring a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Don't you see me coming? Don't you see me now? Don't you see me coming? Every little once in a while. Tomorrow we are going to be flooding the desert with all sorts of humanitarians. This is our 20th year to be bringing humanitarian assistance in the desert. And so we do something called Flood the Desert. And so we'll have 10, 20 cars that will be out in the desert bringing life-saving water to people. We actually have a Samaritan named Sylvie who loves to go out into the desert and bring water. So Sylvie, bring a little water, really comes to life when we're out in the desert. So hear this song again a little bit. Bring it in a bucket, Sylvie. In a bucket now. Bring it in a bucket, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. See see me come a running, see me coming now, see me come and running, every little once in a while. Sylvie come a running, Sylvie coming now, Sylvie come a running, every little once in a while. I was out in the desert last week and we found 9 people in need of water. One of them was a 20-year-old boy from Guatemala who had blisters all over his feet. The first thing he asked for was water. Can you see me coming? Can you see me now? Can you see me coming? Every little once in a while. Bring me little water, Sylvie. Bring me little water now. Bring me little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. You know, that song sounds a whole lot better with all sorts of harmony voices singing along. So hopefully we'll be able to do that in a couple weeks there in Maryland. I do like to jam, and so I thought I'd end with just a good jamming song. I went to school in Boston for 4 years, and I got accused a lot when I was riding the subway that I was riding on top because I came from Montana. And so I learned this song, the MTA, and so I'd like to play it for you. Now let me tell you a story about a man named Charlie on a tragic and fateful day. It's in his pocket, it's the product, family went to ride on the MTA. Did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unknown. I'm died forever, the stones of the man. Now Charlie handed in his time at the station and the train for Jamaica Plain. When he got there, the conductor nickel Charlie couldn't get off of the train. Right. We look forward to having you all out here in January. We are going to be having Common Ground on the Border, and we will be doing immersion trips to the border and having great food and good fellowship. And Sparky and Rhonda Rucker will be coming out here as well as Walt, Michael, and so many others. We look forward to having that event in January. Have a good night.
Thank you, Randy. Charlie and the MTA. Wow. As a little add-on there, the Kingston Trio made that song very famous. That was one of their big hits. And it was written by Jackie Steiner. And in the 1990s, a producer asked me to play on her album, which featured Charlie and the MTA. So I got to play Charlie and the MTA with the original author, Jackie Steiner. That was her name. Well, thank you so much, Randy, and have a happy birthday. Enjoy that Thai food that you're headed for. Our next person on the bill tonight is not a folk musician, but a writer. And she has been at the core of our writing program for a number of years. She has a big fan base. Barbara Morrison, who writes under the name B, just the letter B, Morrison, is the author of the memoir Innocent, Confessions of a Welfare Mother, and 2 poetry collections. And she has some new work coming out. Here at least in Terrarium, I'm sorry. That's the poetry collections are Here at Least and Terrarium. Her award-winning work has been published in anthologies and magazines. She provides editing services and conducts writing workshops. She has maintained her Monday Morning Books blog since 2006. That's 16 years, folks, and tweets regularly about poetry at B Morrison 9. For more information, visit her website. She has some wonderful books, and you can certainly purchase them from her. And consider working with Barb. If you ever wanted to write, she's a wonderful writing teacher. And you can do that at Common Ground on the Hill. And you can also do that on her website. But wonderful to have you back, Barb. So give us some words, Barbara Morrison.
Thank you, Walt. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here tonight. It's going to be fun. I'm going to read tonight from my memoir, Innocent. It's available as a paperback from all the normal outlets, and also from me, from my website. And I have some exciting news, which is that on July 15th, the audiobook of my memoir will be released with me, myself, and I narrating. So that's very exciting for me that finally an audiobook will be coming out. And that'll be available from places like Audible and all those streaming outlets. And then also from your library. You can request your library to have it. So as I said, I'm going to read a little bit from my memoir. I recently, a few years ago, I retired from a good job, as an engineer. But when I was 24, I was a scared young woman. I had some difficult decisions to make. My husband had left me, and my parents had said that I wasn't welcome to come home. So I was in despair about how to support myself and my baby. I did find a temporary sanctuary for us working as a live-in housekeeper for a very kind family. However, when they discovered that I was pregnant, an unplanned parting gift from my ex, they asked me to leave. So I'm going to read to you from there. Many people advised me to get an abortion. I was not opposed to abortion, but knew and had decided that I would keep this child. It often seemed to me that if those opposed to abortion really meant what they said, they would push for better funding in order to make it easier for women to keep their children. It was October by then, by the time I realized I had to leave, and the darkness closed in early. The house was empty and silent, the family having gone out for the evening. There were no curtains in the window of our sitting room on the 3rd floor. I stood close to the window and looked out at the small bright stars in the black sky, so far away. With Jeremy absorbed in stacking and sorting blocks, I went over and sat at the table to count up my assets. I was 24 years old, I had an English degree, no money, a 15-month-old son, and another child on the way. There were 3 piles of paper on the table. One pile consisted of help wanted ads torn out of the paper and lists of other possible jobs. I had checked them out, but I had next to nothing to offer in the way of skills or experience. And even the factories didn't want to hire someone visibly pregnant. A second pile consisted of brochures from daycare centers. Childcare for children under 3 was almost non-existent and very expensive. Some individuals provided daycare for infants and kids under 3 in their homes, but they were not licensed or inspected, and they charged the earth. The third pile, the most disorderly, slipping this way and that, with the old envelopes, napkins from Friendlies, and other stray pieces of paper on which I'd been scribbling budgets for weeks. Jeremy came over and crawled into my lap. I held him with my left hand and with my right moved the budget papers away from his questing hands and spread them out. I kept trying to make the numbers work, but looking at them now, it seemed clear that the salary I would have to make simply to pay for room and board and childcare was well out of my reach. With no alimony or child support, I would have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to survive. But who would watch the kids, and how would I pay for that? As I looked at the pile of much erased and rewritten budgets, I realized that with no job, no money, no child support, and looming medical bills for prenatal care and the new baby's birth, I had no choice but to go on welfare. A choiceless choice, as my friend Jill called it. I had fought against going on welfare for so long, trying to find a communal living situation or a stay-at-home job. The idea of taking handouts, asking for charity, made me cringe. But I didn't see any other way to provide for my children in the coming months. Welfare seemed to be the only door left open to me. Getting welfare, I reasoned, was like getting unemployment. I had paid taxes for years and would again someday soon. It would be, as it was meant to be, a temporary safety net during a difficult time, as if we'd survived some natural disaster. Indeed, I felt like the victim of a hurricane. My life had been picked up and shaken around and dumped to the ground, leaving me without resources of my own to care for my children. Welfare was not an attractive option, even in 1974, even in Massachusetts, where the allotment was one of the best in the country. I had seen what it was like for Jill. In return for food stamps and barely enough to pay rent on the cheapest apartment with minimal utilities, she was subject to surprise inspections from social workers who were entitled to criticize every aspect of her life. When she handed over her food stamps at Stop and Shop, the other shoppers inspected the contents of her cart, ready to condemn anything frivolous. She often had to fight to keep her meager allotment from being cut at some administrator's whim, dependent on an office where social workers were told to act as if the money were coming out of their own pockets. As Jill sometimes cried in frustration, how bad do your choices have to be before welfare seems like your best choice? I felt so old, as if I'd lived 100 years already. I had only one bit of philosophy left, one motto to hold my life together. The kids come first. The kids come first. Every decision had to be based on what was right for the kids. Jeremy and this new baby, I was all they had. I raised my head. Darkness filled the corners of the room, beyond the table, beyond the feeble circle of light from the table lamp. I shivered and held closer, crossing my arms over his tummy and pressing him back against me. He craned his head back to look at me with wide, surprised eyes. "It's all right, sweetheart," I said, and kissed his neck, inhaling his baby smell. "Everything's going to be okay." "Okay," Jeremy repeated as he patted and stroked my cheek with his small, square hand. We were like the babes in the wood, but I couldn't allow us to lie down and die. I had to be an adult, though I barely knew how, having relied on my husband's knowledge of the world since leaving school. The lives of 2 children depended on my making the right choices. The October wind rattled the windows, threatening our precarious refuge. Hazards of all kinds pressed in around us. In deciding to go on welfare, I had the sense that a door had slammed shut behind me, and I was stepping out into the cold, setting off on a journey with no maps, without even knowing what my destination would look like. All I knew for sure was that I would never give up my babies. So my babies are grown up now, and the country and all taxpayers have made a very good investment in us. Not only did I work 2 and sometimes 3 jobs to support my family as they grew up and pay taxes all the while, but both of my children have worked since they were teenagers and paid taxes. Jeremy is now a primary care doctor in an underserved area, and Justin is a teacher in a small school. So I'm going to read you a little bit from the end of the book, just to close things off. Before I do that, I just want to say that the things that made me go on welfare, having to pay for childcare, as well as living expenses, having no medical insurance, these are the reasons why most people go on public assistance. And I wrote this book to try and bring that to people's attention, that these are the things that make you go on welfare. And through the course of the book and my experiences and those of the people I knew, to show what actually helps people to get off of welfare and get out of poverty. So I'm going to read a little bit from the end. Things are very different today for welfare recipients. Soon after I left welfare, the cocaine epidemic of the 1980s sent drug use and crime soaring. Social services have been cut drastically, reducing welfare allotments across the country. Poorly funded transportation systems make it harder than ever to get to work, while housing and medical costs have skyrocketed. Add to these obstacles the effects of the Welfare Reform Act of 1996, and escaping poverty becomes a nearly insurmountable challenge. My parents liked to say that I had battled my way out of poverty. I had pulled myself up by my bootstraps, but it wasn't true. Many people reached out their hands to help me, not just my friends, but the professor at Worcester State College who helped me get certified to teach, the friend of Jill's who helped us get CETA grants, the dance organizations who gave me and later my sons scholarships to camp, the old man who taught us how to garden back on Newbury Street. He showed me that believing you can do it is the first step in getting up off that stoop. Even though I felt the drag of the familiar and the difficulty of reinventing your life when I tried to escape poverty, I barely tasted the hopelessness that many of the women I'd known on welfare expressed. Because I entered welfare with advantages of education and health and experience that enabled me to see another future. And because of that, I'll never know what that blind alley feels like. But I have to try. Every day, I need to be reminded of what Miss Esther Smith, taught me back in college. Pay attention. Pay attention. Driving down Monroe Street, even I who knew better felt how easy it would be to see the people on those stoops through the lens of a stereotype, instead of recognizing that each person had his or her own story, his or her own reason for being there. It's too easy to accept the voices around us as our opinions. It's too easy to accept the voices around us as our opinions. Too easy to rely on stereotypes instead of opening ourselves to the new and unexpected. It's too easy to be insulated, too easy to forget, to look at what we have and think it was somehow earned instead of gained, instead of given. Anyone can be poor anytime. We are only an accident, a divorce away from poverty. And once you've slipped into poverty, all the hard work in the world may not be enough to get you out. So much is outside your control. You have what you're born with, the luck that falls into your hands, and the help that comes out of nowhere. And when the fight is over, you forget how hard it was, like childbirth. It's easy to get soft. It's easy to drive down Monroe Street, blind to the lives of the people sitting on stoops there, the decisions and trade-offs they've had to make. But I owe it to them. I owe it to them to remember to see them as individuals, valuable human beings without whom my life would be the poorer. Thank you.
That was wonderful and powerful, Barbara. Pay attention, folks. We all need to pay attention to one another. These are tough times, and the indicators are that they're going to get tougher, especially for women. And they are our mothers, our sisters, our wives, our friends. And we owe it to them to pay attention and to not stereotype anyone. Be sure to stay in touch with Barbara's writing, and you might want to adopt a place under her wing and have her teach you something about writing and journaling and getting in touch with your inner self. Our next performer comes to us from Florida, and this will be a recording, a video recording, especially for our presentation. I'll tell you a little bit about Rod McDonald. He was a 20-year headliner in Greenwich Village clubs and concerts with 21 songs in the Smithsonian Collection of American Music, and is a co-teacher of the Greenwich Village Folk Festival, co-founder, excuse me. His 12 CDs include such songs as American Jerusalem, A Sailor's Prayer, White Buffalo, and Every Living Thing, recorded by Sean Colvin, Dave Van Ronk, Jonathan Edwards, Garnet Rogers, Four Bitchin' Babes, Joe Jenks, and other artists. Living in South Florida since 1995, he was named one of the 10 greatest South Florida folk singers of all time by the New Times. As a teacher, he began songwriting for self-expression at the New York Open Center and Common Ground on the Hill, and since 2006 has been Music Americana instructor in the Florida Atlantic University's Osher LLS program, where he was named Distinguished Faculty Member in 2012. Rod is a great singer and, for my money, a great human being. We're really glad to have him on board this week teaching. And here he is, all the way from Florida, Rod McDonald.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rod McDonald. Glad to be with you. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person tonight, but I'm somewhere on the highway as this video is being played, and on my way to the Northeast for a few concerts. And since I have to play tomorrow afternoon in upstate New York, I have to get there this evening. But I'm going to play a couple songs for you, and I just want to say how much I am enjoying being involved with Common Ground again this summer, and am really enjoying my classes. Good bunch of students, and a lot of good music being made. Well, let's do a couple songs. Church bells ringing in the heart of town. Long lines of people with their sad clothes on. Schools are closed and the flag is low. People crying everywhere you go. I bet many can't be moved to hear the choir sing. They look into their neighbor's eyes and wouldn't change a thing. Black limousines, flags flapping on the fenders. The man who brought this on has no defenders. The whole world mourns the deed he's done. Sadness sings in the candlelit town. Ah, but many can't be moved to hear the church bells ring. They look into their parents' eyes and wouldn't change a thing. A flower floats down on the breeze like an angel in the rain. Non-believers on their knees, struck silent by the pain. There'll be promises to the future. This time things are gonna change. It doesn't matter who can't see it. It doesn't matter who's to blame. Still many can't be moved to see these souls take wing. They watch the children laid to rest and wouldn't change a thing. Well, that's a song from my 2014 CD, Later That Night, and not surprisingly, nothing much has changed since I wrote that song. In the next generation to come down the line, I believe it was the year 2039, they asked, "Hey Mom, what was the pandemic? I've been hearing about it in school and I bet it was something you'd never want to see again." Mom sat down, shook her head and said with a grin, "Oh, the pandemic, wasn't that a time?" "Well," said Mom, "I was just in my teens. Your daddy was trying to get in my jeans. We couldn't travel, so we married on Zoom. The preacher in Maine, our parents back home. Made our own cake, had colored balloons. Streamed the first kiss, went on our honeymoon without leaving the room. Yeah, the pandemic, wasn't that a time? Yeah, said Mom, and who could forget? The numbers kept climbing and no one protected their faces till thousands were gasping for air and businesses shutting down everywhere. And speaking of time, every now and then you'd hear the news of a trusted friend you knew you'd never meet again. There was no toilet paper on the shelf. You couldn't go to work, so we kept to ourselves. Took walks in the moonlight when the curfew was gone. And I've never felt closer to anyone. And there was this guy who was like a big joke. Said no one's really dying, it's just a cruel hoax. But he was no friend of mine. Yeah, the pandemic, wasn't that a time? It was a quiet time to reflect, said Mom. We had 600 channels in the living room. It's amazing to me to remember today there was never anything on anyway, except for live concerts that were these guys I know. Came on every Sunday with a different show, and somehow it eased my mind. Yeah, the pandemic, wasn't that a time? And in the midst of it all, people took to the streets when an unarmed black man killed by police was becoming too normal. And for the first time, the cops were made to pay for the crime. And speaking of crime, there were women and men who thought they'd overturn the government. Well, they ended up doing time. Now you knew it was coming to an ending soon when they turned on the news, and every afternoon there was a shooting in a mall or a store. So many thoughts and prayers you couldn't take anymore. It was easier to buy a gun than to vote. We had to dig deep to keep the ship afloat for the next generation to come down the line. That's what Mama said back in 2039. Yeah, the pandemic, wasn't that a time? Oh, the pandemic, wasn't that a time? Thanks everybody for listening. Hey, I'd like to invite you to check out the Greenwich Village Folk Festival this coming Sunday evening at 7 to 10 p.m. I'll be in it along with Happy Traum, Kate Taylor, Chris Matthews, Cozy Sheridan, Ray Bonneville, Evie Joy, Matthew Sabatella, Martin Joseph from England, and Mad Agnes from Connecticut. Really great lineup. And it's on YouTube and Facebook and the GreenwichVillageFolkFestival.org websites. And if you can't catch it Sunday, it's archived. You can catch future editions of it in the playback somewhere down the line. Thanks again for listening. Thanks so much to everybody for the people that participated in my class this week. We've had a wonderful time. And thanks to Walt and all the volunteers and staff people, Maria, everybody, for keeping Common Ground on the Hill going. Such an essential thing in these times, and it's a great honor to be part of it. Bye-bye. See you somewhere soon, I hope.
Rod McDonald, what a great song, what a great couple of songs. I'm always blown away by Rod's songcraft, and gosh, what a wonderful tenor voice. And yeah, tune into the Greenwich Village Folk Festival online. I played in that last year, and gosh, what a great lineup. Keeping the old Greenwich Village spirit alive. There's some wonderful singer-songwriters involved there, including Rod. This has been a wonderful week. of music, and we have 2 more weeks coming. Music and art and writing. There's so many things going on. Keynotes. I'd like to remind you that next Monday, this coming Monday, July 4th, is the keynote at 8 o'clock, and it will be given by Andrew Reiner, where he will be discussing his book, Better Boys, Better Men, which talks about us trying to arrive at a new masculinity where we raise our boys to become men who are a little kinder, boys who feel empowered but don't feel compelled to dominate and be violent. And certainly we've had more than enough of that, right? So tune in. Andrew Reiner's book is a wonderful book. He's a regular contributor to the New York Times. He is a professor at Towson University. So tune in Monday on our YouTube live channel, the place where you are now. We have 2 more weeks of classes, another virtual week coming up, and you can actually still enroll. Go to the website and check it out, commongroundonthehill.org. And then we have Traditions Week 3, which is in person. You can still enroll in that and attend the Common Ground on the Hill Festival and the Deer Creek Fiddlers Convention, which will take place on the campus of McDaniel College here in Westminster, Maryland on July 16th. It's going to be a great one. So spread the word and bring some friends. I'd like to thank Maria Wong for her constant work at arranging these concerts. And our technician tonight was Jack Bez. Thank you, Jack, for standing in and doing a great job. And kudos to all of the folks who do the work at Common Ground on the Hill, from art to music to dance to writing to you name it. So take care and visit us again at commongroundonthehill.org and have a safe July 4th weekend. Take care now.